Welcome to Luxembourg. This is Chateau Bourcheid and we are in the Ardennes region. I am here with Tom and it's our last day in Europe together.
Alas, it's flown by, isn't it?
It has.
But I mean, look at that. Saved the best till last.
It's a stunning view. This is the Ardennes region, which comprises areas of Luxembourg, Belgium and France. It's heavily forested and very hilly. And it was here that Hitler chose for a surprise attack late in 1944, mainly against American troops to try and split the Allies and force a surrender. It became known as the Battle of the Bulge.
Let's go.
On the 16th of December 1944, three German panzer armies launched a surprise attack on American troops sheltering in the forests of the Ardennes region. This was Hitler's extremely ambitious attempt to split the Western Allies and force their surrender. However, to succeed, German troops would need to attack with incredible speed, capture Allied fuel to keep their vehicles running, and reach Antwerp within just 6 days. By the 19th of December, the Germans were already behind schedule. They met fierce American resistance in the town of Bastogne. Oh, and by the way, it's called the Battle of the Bulge literally because of this bulgy bit on the map. It's also known as the Ardennes Offensive. And now we're in Bastogne. So we've made it to Bastogne and the Bastogne War Museum. Bastogne was a really iconic site in the Battle of the Bulge. 18,000 US troops were trapped and encircled by German forces until they were finally relieved by further US forces and British forces. And Matthew has thankfully agreed to show us around and tell us a bit more about the museum. Let's go. Opened in 2014, the Bastogne War Museum features interactive audio tours, immersive visual shows, and displays many military and civilian artifacts from the Battle of the Bulge itself.
So there were three German armies invaded the Ardennes on the 16th of December 1944. On the north, led by Sepp Dietrich. On the south, it was General Brandenberger with the 7th Army. And in the middle, the 5th Panzer Army led by General von Manteuffel. Yes. And Manteuffel he survived the war and he came back in the 70s here in Bastogne. And when he came back, he offered to the museum his jacket that he wore during the time when he was a prisoner of war. And so this is the original jacket offered by Manteuffel in the 70s. They tried to cross the Meuse in the other
It's Patrick
side,
Stewart, isn't it?
But
Didn't know he was involved.
On the 22nd of December, the US troops from the 101st Airborne Division, besieged in Bastogne, received a German ultimatum to surrender. Acting US Commander Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe responded with an infamous one-word reply.
But arrived the moment of writing an official reply.
Yes.
And so he said, "What can I write?" And so one of his backing officer said, "You got the right reply in a few minutes ago, sir." What did I say? Nuts. Okay, let's say to the German commander, nuts. With the German couldn't understand the reply, and so yes, another officer said, means go to hell.
Yeah. So we've just finished our tour of the Bastogne War Museum. Tom, what do you think?
Extremely impressive. I've been so impressed by the quality of the museums we've seen while we've been here, and this is no exception. They've clearly put lots of work into it. The interactivity, the different storylines, people's personal accounts, the immersive aspects of it as well. It's theatre. It's amazing.
Yeah, the immersive video is some of the best interpretation I've seen in
footage,
any museum.
The quality of the artefacts on display, both the military stuff and the more personal stuff.
There's a new exhibition opening here in July 2022, focusing on post-war.
If it's half as good as what we've seen in there, you're going to want to come and check it out.
Absolutely.
Really good stuff.
So we're going to go up into the hills now to a place called Schumann's Eck and learn about fighting around Bastogne itself.
Nice, okay. Yeah.
Let's go.
We're not fighting each other, are we?
Possibly later. By the 23rd of December, weather conditions began to improve, allowing for Allied airdrops for the defenders of Bastogne. With air superiority and the arrival of fresh Allied troops, momentum now shifted towards the Allies. To the north, General Bernard Montgomery stalled the German advance at the Meuse River, and from the south, General Patton's 3rd Army raced north to relieve Bastogne. We joined Frank at the Schumann's Eck Memorial Trail south of Bastogne to learn more about the fierce fighting that took place here between US and German soldiers. The Battle of the Bulge was in mid-winter, December, January, and it was a particularly bleak time. What impact did that have on the fighting here?
Absolutely, it was one of the harshest winter that we ever faced in the last century, with up to 20 degrees sub-zero and a snow drift over 1.5 meters. So on these conditions, of course, the Germans had one advantage. They had winter war experiences from the Eastern Front, and they had adequate equipment, and the Americans were unfortunately lacking especially white sheets in order to blend with the snow. And you see here, here are the original American foxholes. There was an intensive sniper activity. That's to say, you could hardly move during the day, and the foxholes, they were very small and normally occupied by 2 people, and it was very tough to stay immobilized for hours. You could not smoke, you could not make a fire, and so on. And of course, this under these terrible weather conditions.
Amazing. Brutal. Truly brutal.
Yeah.
And the casualty rate was quite significant for this conflict.
Absolutely, absolutely. To a certain point, turned out to be more or less the same as the trench war in the First World War. You know, constant attack and counter-attacks, and with just a very small gain of terrain, and that you have to give up during the next counter-attack.
Yes.
So it's been a really interesting trip to Schumann's Eck here. We'll put links in the description about this site and also about Frank's work. But Tom and I are going to head off for one final location today, and we're going to a very small village which played a really important part at the beginning of the battle itself.
Okay, yeah,
Head
let's
on.
go.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
On the 26th of December 1944, a tank division of Patton's Third Army broke the encirclement of Bastogne and established a narrow corridor. Fierce fighting continued as the German forces retreated and saved the majority of their elite troops. The battle was extremely costly to both sides, with an estimated 80,000 killed, and represented the last major German offensive on the Western Front in the Second World War. At the end of the day, I took Tom to a tiny village with an incredible story to tell.
So Chris, it's our last day, at the end of our last day, in fact.
Yeah.
We've been to some amazing places, met some amazing people, but you decided to cap it all off by bringing me to a field in the middle of nowhere. So what's going on?
It's not just any field, Tom.
It looks like one. So,
This is very close to a very small village called Lanzerath in Belgium.
Right, okay.
And we are just a few kilometres from the German border.
Oh, really? Okay.
In December 1944, the 99th Infantry Division of the US Army were hunkered down all along this stretch of terrain. And they were quite untested troops. They hadn't really seen much action. A reconnaissance platoon of just 18 men, led by a 20-year-old lieutenant called Lyle Bourge, were patrolling this area here. They were here on the morning of the 16th of December 1944 when the Germans began their attack. The 6th Panzer Army began their assault on this area.
So these are the big boys, they're not messing around?
Oh no,
Okay.
These are serious fighters. 500 paratroopers engaged the 18 men of the reconnaissance platoon who were positioned here.
And presumably it doesn't end well for the...
You'd think not, for the Americans, right?
Yeah.
Well, they heroically stood firm for 20 hours. They held back the paratroopers for 20 hours.
18 against 500.
They sustained losses and casualties themselves. One member of the 18 lost their lives, but they inflicted huge casualties on the other side. 96 casualties amongst the Germans, including 16 dead. This is fundamentally important to preventing the German advance.
So Bourge's presumably chuffed to pieces then?
Well, he spent the rest of the war in a prisoner of war camp and actually thought he'd done a terrible job because his men had been forced to surrender. It was only years later that they discovered that they were essentially war heroes. And I think it's a really interesting story because it goes to show that the actions of a valiant few really can change the course of a battle and arguably the course of the war.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. And that, like, you know, it might seem at the time like your actions aren't that significant, but on reflection, they're a lot more impressive.
Absolutely.
A bit like this.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, it's been an amazing tour through the land of memory. We've had an amazing time.
Yeah, it's been really good, yeah.
Would highly recommend looking at the Land of Memory website and coming to visit the sites for yourself. And also, if you're looking for more World War I and World War II content, do go to the website historybombs.com, and why not take out a membership? You can access all our videos and teaching materials, and it's really affordable. Right.
Train.
Yeah, we've got to go to the Eurotunnel. Au revoir.
Au revoir.
To plan your own trip to the historic sites featured in this video, go to the Land of Memory website. Explore fascinating historic sites across France, Belgium, Luxembourg and Germany. You can even browse pre-made routes and download Google Maps for your trips. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon.